My wife and I had our first child around 2 months ago. She was home isolated during her entire pregnancy after the 6-month mark. Because of some pregnancy complications, we'd also agreed that the first 2 months after birth, our parents and siblings would be the only ones allowed to visit and see the baby and our friends. And the rest of the relatives could wait as soon as the baby turned 2 months. My wife tried to get back into her social life again. Sometimes she'd bring the baby with her, but sometimes she'd expect me to babysit. Whenever I couldn't babysit, she called her mom to ask her if she could care for the baby for a few hours. My wife's a great mom and she truly cares for our baby. But it's frustrating how she feels the need to go out the entire time one day while she was out shopping with a friend. I was babysitting the kid and my mom visited me and asked where my wife was. I told her she was out with a friend. My mom got furious about how my wife went out, and she told me I have no backbone for not calling her out and telling her to stay at home with the baby. I told my mom I would handle this. My mom waited until my wife returned home and started scolding her. It wasn't a proud moment for me, and I really didn't want to get my mom involved. But my wife needed to hear it from someone else. My mom told my wife that she's irresponsible and should cut down her meetings with friends and stay home to care for the kid as a proper mother would. My wife tried to defend herself, saying how I was always out with my friends during her pregnancy and after she gave birth. But both my mom and I tried to explain how my going out is not the same as her going out. My mom told her that the little walks and coffee hangouts with her friends are over, and that she better get used to the fact that her social life will now be limited. It sucks, but that's how it is. I agree with my mother on everything, and my wife hasn't spoken to me for days. She even sleeps in the guest room now and took the baby's crib there. She will only cook for herself and the baby and not for me. My mother-in-law and my sister-in-law have texted me saying I was a huge idiot for this, and so was my mom. So it shouldn't surprise me. My wife is acting like this towards me. You are the idiot. Notice how you say taking care of your own kid is babysitting. You didn't mention the time she goes out versus you. But you just want us to trust you that it's different for you. You don't even mention speaking to your wife before your mom says anything too bad. Your wife has 2 kids at home all of this. I had a husband like this once upon a time. However, I now live 4 hours away from him with primary custody of our children. And it's still easier than being a stay-at-home mom married to that idiot. You are the idiot. And if you don't fix your thinking and tell your mum to mind your own business, you will end up paying for it in the end. Literally and figuratively sort out your priorities because your wife's mental health and happiness clearly aren't part of them. Motherhood sucks the life out of you one day at a time when isolated from the rest of the world. Good Lord, you suck. You and your wife became a family and team. When you got married, even before the baby, your mom is now an extended family member. She should never feel comfortable scolding your wife, especially in her own home. And that's your job to set the boundary postpartum. Depression is so serious, and an unsupportive spouse increases it so much you literally went out while she was on bed rest. She probably felt so isolated and alone, worrying. If this new baby she was responsible for growing would be okay and you were out with friends. But God forbid she shops for a few hours. Don't be surprised if she leaves you with your mommy in the future. My wife and I just finished a major project to redo our entire dining room this last week. This included buying an incredibly fancy marble dining table and new dining chairs. My wife is a professional chef and has dreamed of having a high-end dining room to host dinner parties since she was a child. This project has been one that's been on the back burner for a while now. And last year, I got an unexpected bonus that I decided to use to make this dream a reality. My wife is over the moon to celebrate this. Her parents. My parents, my 2 siblings, and my brother's wife are coming over for the dinner party. My wife has dreamed of hosting since she was a child. This is all of our media family, except for my wife's only sibling sister and husband. The reason for this is simple. My brother-in-law physically cannot attend the party, as we have. It planned my brother-in-law is £500+. I'll talk about why we didn't invite him to avoid the whole fat-shaming conversation that I know this will bring up the chairs that we bought cannot support him. And even then, he cannot sit upright because of his weight for long periods. He would require us to either sit in our living room, on the couch, or sit in a medical chair that we cannot get into our home. It won't fit through our doors. His sitting in there would defeat the point of hosting a dinner party for our new dining room. There's also the fact that this dinner party would comprise 7 smaller courses, something we know my brother-in-law would not be okay with. There have been instances in the past where he harassed my wife over serving smaller portions in the past. This goes into a larger issue with him and food that I will not bring up, because I don't feel like arguing about it when we sent out the invites. We excluded him from the list with all of this in mind, but not her sister. I didn't lie to him when he called last night asking why he wasn't invited. It was because of his weight and past actions. Regarding food and my wife, he lost his mind because we were excluding him. Because of his weight, he said this is unfair and that we are being bigots. I told him yes, this is about his weight, that this night is about my wife and being able to fulfill a childhood dream. Not about accommodating him and his mobility and food issues. This has caused a crap storm. My wife's sister is now calling me a phobic idiot and has gone on Facebook and publicly shamed my wife and me. Everyone attending the party and my wife who told me we should just ignore it. My friends have told me I'm a major idiot and an elitist for all this. Am I not the idiot when you're that heavy? You must face the reality that you cannot do the same things as other people. And he sounds like he's in denial. Your wife's sister is an enabler as well. He has harassed your wife over serving small portions in the past. And the theme of this party is small courses. His behavior would likely repeat and be a problem, even without the special conditions. His weight imposes. His behavior would be enough of an issue to exclude him. Wait till Sis blows a gasket when she finds out that even hospital equipment is not rated for £500. An ambulance may not accommodate him either. Is someone over £500 allowed to fly in commercial aircraft? I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. What is his suggestion as to a solution? Or what does a sister think you should do? I mean, if he can be brought into the house in a wheelchair and sit in the kitchen away from everything, and that's okay with him, then that's a choice he can make. Otherwise, I don't know what you should do. Agree. People always want to point out that if you aren't accommodating to them, they are ableists. You can't accommodate everyone. That's just the fact of life. Good luck, my dude, and ignore the Facebook drama. Congratulations to your wife and you on your new dining room. I hope she enjoys it. My wife and I have 6 kids, the oldest. 2 are nearly adult female and teen female. And the little ones are toddlers and a baby. My wife works 9 to 6. I work from home 9 to 5. We've previously had a babysitter nanny, but after the last one left, we asked the girls if they'd want to do it and earn extra money. They said yes, so we drew up rules. They get paid $50 a day between them to babysit Monday to Friday, 2:30 to 5 p.m. They don't both need to be there as long as one of them is there. We just pay both of them together each Friday night. And they're very good about figuring out the weekly split and coverage each week. They also have their own sort of rules within our rules. Like if you bail last minute twice in the same week, you lose $10 to the other person, that kind of thing. That's all between the two of them. Though our rule is that if they give us a week's notice or have some kind of emergency unpredictable, like if the oldest daughter wakes up sick on Thursday, they don't get paid for that day. But there's no other penalty. We want them to be able to live their lives. We've also been pretty generous with our definition of an emergency. However, there's an additional clause that says if it's not an emergency and they don't give notice either, they have to find someone else to cover, like a friend or a cousin, or someone that's babysat for us in the past, or they lose $50 from that week. Last night they said they both had tickets to a drama club event tomorrow, and they will be out from 3 p.m. to later at night with a few of their mutual friends. I said, that's fine. Can you get the coverage? And they said, oh, cousin can't. So I said, okay, that's fine if you don't want to ask around more. That's $50, but it's fine. They got upset and said that wasn't fair. My wife said I should give them a mulligan because this is the first time the rule has kicked in. I feel like the mulligans have already been used. And also, our absence policy is far, far more generous than any job you'd find elsewhere. And while I think it's great for them to bond with their siblings and it's money well spent if they were just people, we were paying $20 an hour to babysit, I'd be saying that they needed to get off their phones, clean up after themselves, be less reliant on screens, etc. So am I the idiot here? Freaking you are the idiot. 4 little kids for 2.5 hours per day for $50 split between the two of them. Let your high schoolers be high schoolers, sure, if they want to babysit when you and your SO want a night out to earn some allowance. You just don't want to hire proper private after-school care because you know it would be way more than what you're doing right now. They only get $25 each to watch 4 kids. The absolute least anyone I know would charge back in my babysitting days was $10 per kid per hour for one babysitter. And that was 10+ years ago. You are the idiot. The part you're missing is that they're your actual children, not random strangers. You are the idiot for making your older children take care of their younger siblings for basically pennies. You and your wife had 6 kids. You're responsible for their child care. Also, it's not their responsibility to find you a babysitter. In the event they cannot work, it's your job as a parent to do that. You're being lazy and irresponsible if you keep it up. I wouldn't be surprised if they both decide to opt out of the stress you're putting them under my husband, 26 male. And I, 22 female, own a house that we purchased in early 2020. My husband's sister, Sam, 24, came over because we just returned from our trip to Chicago, where I was visiting some of my family. Sam was asking about a trip, and I was lamenting the fact that I missed my cousins and that I wish we could move there. She said that it might be a possibility in the future. And that's when I said it's not likely because we already bought a house in the state that we live in. That's when I told her she's lucky that she only rents her apartment and doesn't own a house, because she could just move whenever she wants. But it's really hard for us because we're tied down here because of the house after that. She seemed fine, and the night went on like usual last week. There was a family gathering, and Sam complained that she wished that my father-in-law gave her the same help he gave my husband so that she could be more financially secure. I told her my husband's hard work got him to where he was. That's when Sam got snippy and said that I had no right to talk because the 40,000 for the house and an entire business wasn't hard work. It was a handout. I told her that yes, father-in-law gave us 40 grand for a down payment and gave us money that helped to start a business. But all he did was supply the money. My husband's the one that runs that business. And that made us so successful, she then called me an idiot because I was condescending. And remind me of how I told her she was lucky to move whenever she wanted to. And that I would be nothing without her father's money. My husband and I thought she was incredibly rude, but she's refusing to apologize. So am I the idiot? You are the idiot. How can you be so blind to your privilege, of course? Saying someone's lucky not to have a house is incredibly rude newsflash if someone can't afford a house. They can't afford to move whenever they feel like it. Also, is there a reason your father-in-law gave his son financial help, but not his daughter? The second part is the biggest blind spot for all. Whether they spend 40,000 on a business or a house sister-in-law could have used it as a down payment. I can't even with-up you are the idiot for still not recognizing the unfair treatment between your husband and sister-in-law and holding your ground like an idiot. Yeah, my husband is a completely self-made man who did it all on his own, except for the money his daddy gave him. Do you even listen to yourself when you speak? Do you honestly think your husband would be where he was without father-in-law supplying the money as someone saving to open my business with my wife? 40,000 is a huge amount of money for a handout. You are the idiot. Owning a house is the single best way to build wealth in this crap economy, and renting it is twice as expensive in both the immediate and long run. The average cost of moving apartments right now is over $2,500 when you account for deposits, insurance, and first and last month's rent. It's equivalent to the down payment of a house on some financing options in some places right now. I cannot believe the ridiculousness of your complaint. You have a house that is yours, saving you costs right now and building equity every single day. She doesn't get her rent payments. Give her nothing in return besides temporary shelter. Geez, my father-in-law bought a small old house in their town 8 years ago. He renovated it a bit and originally planned to make it into a vacation rental, but it has never happened a year ago. My husband and I asked if we could rent it from him and move in. He allowed us to live here and didn't want to accept rent from us. But we still leave the money in his home every month in an envelope. We're very grateful that he let us live in this house. But he comes over a few times a week without announcement. It's mostly to help do yard work, mow the lawn, etc. I work from home, and this bothers me a lot. He just randomly opens the door and sticks his head in to say, "Hello." It's happened during meetings or when I just finished making dinner and the kitchen was an enormous mess. Or when I was in the bathroom, he also came in a few times when we were away from home. We were hiking somewhere and he called us to ask us where the hairdryer was because he couldn't find it in our bathroom. I hate this and always feel stressed, both at home and away from home. It's also a small house, 430 square feet, and it's hard to keep it clutter-free, so I always feel self-conscious about the mess we leave before we go out. And don't want my father-in-law to randomly drop in. My husband tried to talk to him about calling us first before coming over, but he didn't listen so he put up a new lock edit. Got a standard key at a hardware store to the existing interior door that leads to the living area. From the entry room, we didn't actually change locks a few days ago, and now we can't just come into the house anymore. We didn't ask his permission or tell him about it. We've been away for a few days now, and he just called my husband that he tried to go into the house. But he couldn't get in. My husband told him about the new lock, and my father-in-law is mad at us. We basically locked him out of his own house, and if there were an emergency or anything, he couldn't go in also. If this was a real renting situation, we definitely wouldn't be legally allowed to lock out the landlord. We're going back home tomorrow. And we'll have to discuss the situation. Are we in the wrong? Here should we go to him, apologising, or trying to establish the boundaries we want to set up? Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. You can't change the locks to a home you don't own without permission. As your landlord, I presume you've lived there long enough to be legally classed as tenants. He cannot come into the property whenever he feels like it, and needs to give you proper notice. If he wants to visit the property, this is clearly not working out. Find somewhere new to run a SAP and get out of his house. He will always see it as his house, and his kid is just staying there with his partner for a bit if he can't separate being the landlord from being the father. It's never to work. Everyone's the idiot here. It seems to me like your father-in-law refused rent for 2 reasons: to help you out, and to make sure he can still have complete control of his house. The fact that you leave him money anyway doesn't mean you're paying rent. You're just giving him money while it's annoying. He keeps entering your home. You have a really simple solution. Move. You want freedom and independence. Move out of his home. You are the idiot he owns it, and you don't have a contract. You're not residents. You're guests. Beggars can't be choosers. If you don't like his random access, then leave the house. But changing the locks was well. If I was here, might kick you both out, no questions or negotiation. His house, you're not renters, so it's also his rules. Don't like it, leave you.